Ready? Okay. So we are back to our workshop. Emily, if you just do the roll, please.
Mr. Brendan Lynch.
Present.
Ms. Carla Bloxton.
Present.
Ms. Caroline Chakchi-Basha.
Present.
Ms. Leah Furch.
Here.
Mr. Daniel Morgan.
Here.
Ms. Ann Fairfax.
Here.
Ms. Donna Kerner.
Present.
So just a reminder, this is a workshop. We will not be taking any actions. There'll be no votes, and there'll be no public comment on any of the discussion items. So, Joan, if you would please kick us off.
So we're going to start off with just a quick revenue presentation so we know exactly where we're starting from. It's okay. Taxable values this year went up 16.6% in the CRA. I believe they went up probably about 16% in the city as well, so that's really good. Our commercial residential mix, residential we have 43%, commercial we have 57%. As you can see, 10 years ago, the breakdown was quite different. We were heavily into commercial. It's better to have more of a 50-50 as far as the breakdown as far as this goes, because we all know if housing goes down or there's a recession or all of a sudden commercial, as we hear these days, is now the next bust. We still have, you know, half of the rest of the district to rely on. So the tax exempt value in the CRA is $114 million, and that is nonprofits. Just for instance, Adopt a Family is one of our partners, government entities, and of course the homestead exemptions. So on the lower left side, you'll see our total taxable values for the last, I don't know, 10, 12 years, rising steadily, which is exactly what you want to see versus a lot of ups and downs. The breakdown of taxable values, we have more properties that are worth more now, obviously, than we did back then. So we have less people paying no taxes, we still have some, and we actually have the majority of our property owners, their values being somewhere between probably about $100,000 and $500,000. For a single family, just to give you an example, there's 1,217 total. 45% of those claim some kind of tax exemption. 22 have no taxable value because of the exemptions. 340 have a value of less than 100,000. 160 homes have a tax value between 100 and 250, and then we have 23 homes in the district that have a value over 250. So some of our investments in the past are things that are relatively current. In the upper left-hand side, we have Deco Green, which is the next project going on Dixie Highway next to the mid. That is 1715 North Dixie Highway. It will be 125 units. There's a little bit of office and there's a little bit of retail. There's quite a bit of open space there. They are receiving a $100,000 infrastructure grant from the CRA. Their investment is probably more now, but at the time was $32 million. So the public-private investment is 320 to 1, the ratio. Lower left-hand side, we have Allura, which is kind of the sister building to the one that was built downtown. These are luxury condos. I want to say they probably start at $400,000 or $500,000. They also got an infrastructure grant from us, and the public-private ratio for that one is 35 to 1. Finally, we have Sky Garden, which is just up the road here. Thank you. The one that was a CRA property is actually just the property on East Street. There's a single 25-foot lot there, and then the person next door decided to build something with the same architect, but has many more units in it. So it's Sky Garden, and the other name is The Standard. So we used NSP funds to buy the lot. I want to say the lot was very, very inexpensive, maybe like $20,000. So our investment for that one is a ratio of 23 to 1. Moving on, some of you have heard about Madison Terrace, 821 South Dixie Highway. This is a low-income housing tax credit project. Well, they're applying. We should know if they got the 9% tax credits by September or October. It will be over 170 units. It will serve people 55 and older and earning 60% or less of area median income. I apologize, it's 176 units. They have asked for a local match from us. They asked us last year. We gave it to them. It was $640,000. So the public-private investment for that one would be 46-1. And we have the Gulfstream Hotel. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm sure you're pretty familiar with that one. Village Flats, we're waiting for some permits to start construction of that on Lake and Lucerne. These are rentals that will be, there's a mix, so half will be market rate and the other half will be for area median income of 120% or less. Future developments, up on the left-hand corner, 1213, we finally have some progress that you can actually see from the outside. This was a building that sat empty for the entire 16 years I've been here. It was burnt out and kind of left to rot. We bought it just a few years ago for $350, maybe $375, something like that. We were able to go and get grants from Solid Waste Authority, also a private funder, and use some of our CRA money as well. And we're rehabbing the entire building. The purpose is to have a youth mentoring center here in the western part of the community. There's 2 people that we're talking to right now, Excel Mentoring. They offer mentoring specifically for people who would like to go into the trades. So they specifically teach skills in plumbing, electric, construction, design, and I'm sure I'm missing 1 or 2. The other hopeful tenant we have is Path to College, and obviously they get a lot of, especially Lake Worth children, ready for college. So that'll be a really phenomenal project once finished, and just another way to help stabilize the area besides just doing buildings for, rent or lease. On the right-hand side, we have the Perch. This is a property that was actually given to us, not given to us as in like, here's your property, but it was, this city asked us to do an RFP for it many, many years ago. We did the RFP. We settled on Inhabit Development, who is the same group that's doing the Village Flats. So there'll be 2- and 3-story rental units right up at the circle there. It has been put on hold for quite a while now. First there was COVID, and then there's also FDOT. So FDOT is doing 2 projects, hopefully this upcoming year. One is they're resurfacing Lake and Lucerne, and the other is they're doing improvements to the circle. They're doing improvements to up by Tri-Rail, and they're putting in some new crosswalks up near the old Publix there. So it will definitely impact this particular project. They will be providing new lighting, new crosswalks, new sidewalks, and some new plantings and things like that. So the developer investment in this is at least $5 million. And Jamie and I, he actually just reached out to FDOT today to try to get a better idea of when they're going to start construction. We have 1,000 Lake Ave rehabilitation. It seems to be taking a long time too, but we did have COVID in the middle of it. The building is coming along. I believe there's only maybe 2 windows that aren't complete as of today. It is still slated to be a restaurant and brewery downstairs and a rock and roll museum upstairs in partnership with Rob Van Winkle and the owner Bob and Shaw. This is a future project that we kind of started years ago, I think before COVID, and it's been taking kind of a while to get off the ground, but there's a group called Dixie Investment, and they started the project by building the Dunkin' Donuts there, and the idea was to build more retail in the area, as you can see on the middle slide, and then also a house, maybe a 5-story housing development that has affordable housing in it on H Street. They are currently working with the city electric department because we're actually moving the substation over, I think, a block. So once that happens and it goes through the city and gets the approval, then hopefully we'll move forward on that particular project. Completed projects, we have the mid that came on our tax rolls this year. The Bohemian, which came on the tax rolls with a roar, really. We were surprised, actually, that it came on for as high as it did, but very grateful. So, we do have future investment. There are some other assemblages that we have done. I'm sure you're all very familiar with downtown. We're still working with Dover Coal and Partners to fix the RFP to the point where if a developer is looking at it, he knows exactly where to go to get the information he needs to know what he can or cannot do. So it'll have certain sections that say, for instance, if you're looking for setbacks, you're going to go to this document. If you're looking for historic guidelines, you're going to go to this document, and so forth. And also some input from them on the design, understanding the character and the uniqueness of the area. NSP2, affordable housing, we're almost done with NSP2. We have maybe a few $100,000 left, but it actually belongs to Habitat, so they're going to be doing, I believe, another 6 homes or so. We also have community project funding that we got from Congresswoman Frankel. That $750 comes to us soon. Hopefully we get some of that match from the city. We put in another application for community funding this year, and the CRA put in $1 million match for that. So we're hoping we get at least a couple $100,000 for that, so we can continue doing affordable homes in the area. These are just the ones that are kind of under development or in the planning stages. So you can see the different properties there on the left-hand side in the spreadsheet. We have different partners, whether they be Habitat, Community Land Trust. We also have Inhabit that's doing private investment. So we've counted all of those. And you can see the different locations that we have, both rental and home ownership. Grants, something that we do every year, doesn't really get much fanfare, but it really, I think, has started making a difference, at least on Dixie Highway especially. That's kind of always been our area of focus, to kind of clean it up and make it look a lot better. So a couple of the ones that came through this past year is Palm Beach Modern Auctions, a beautiful building at 1217 North Dixie, LDG Architects. Gifted Kids, they got a new sign and some facade grants from us. Also Matthews Brewery that the board just approved at the last meeting. We also have Yasmin Realty, and they're going to be, I guess, redoing all the pipes in their building as well. And you could see the breakdown of interior improvement grants, facade grants, and signage grants, all of which have gone out this year or been awarded or paid. This is really hard to read, and I don't expect you to even try. But this is our grant revenue received. One of the things we're really proud about with our staff is the ability to bring in outside money, whether it be private foundation money or grant money. To date, we've brought in over $36 million since I started here 16 years ago. And right now, I believe we probably have about 4 grant applications in, so fingers crossed we get some more. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Definitely great to look back and see all the hard work from you and staff, so that's great. Thanks for the overview. So item B, overview of fiscal year 24 programs.
Okay.
Oh, she's going mobile.
I have. So please forgive my really basic form of doing the presentations here. I know it's extremely simple, but I think you kind of get the drift. What we've done is we've gone through state statute, we've gone through the Community Redevelopment Act, we've also gone through our particular redevelopment plan, picked out some of the main things that CRA is here to do, and put these up here so you, the board, can decide on where we're going to spend our money, probably for the next few years. I'm going to start out really quickly with CRA's what we don't do. We don't make land use or zoning decisions. We don't make policy. The city does that. We don't enforce design guidelines or code. We don't help people make real estate decisions. We don't provide social services, and we are not allowed actually to pay for events that are not related to economic development, which is why we have our separate nonprofit. So I'm going to start over here with grants and business
I would
incentives. You'll
just add one, we don't spend money outside of our district. Or is
correct.
that- Oh, it
Yes.
is on there, outside, sorry, I didn't see that one. Never mind.
I'm going to start with grants and business incentives. There's a very small spreadsheet in front of you. And I bring this up because we just saw a slide that went through signage grants, facade grants, and tenant improvement grants. And they are, the facade and the tenant improvement are the most used, and those are up to $35,000, and they're matching. I just wanted the board to know that other cities either pay a higher percentage or have a funding cap that's higher than ours. So if the board, you don't have to decide right now, but maybe in the future you want to discuss maybe increasing those somewhat or making it, 75-25 or 70-30, just because things have gotten so incredibly expensive. And there's definitely a lot more to do. So there's pictures here of some of our recent grants, and there's some more of the ones that we're working on right now. Local Transportation Initiative, this would be a brand new program for us. We've had several conversations with Circuit, which is an electric vehicle. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. They're in Hollywood, they're in Fort Lauderdale, they're now in West Palm Beach. We've been talking to them for a couple months because of the closing of Lake and Lucerne, and we were concerned about downtown and people kind of getting frustrated and they won't be able to park, and then they leave without spending money here or spending time here. So we thought, let's look into Circuit. Unbeknownst to me, Commissioner Diaz was already on top of it, as was the mayor. So we set up a couple meetings with them. We've talked to them. We have I would say just a very draft route that's pretty simple, that takes you from the Tri-Rail through the downtown, through the Western community to the downtown, past the hotel to the beach and back. Obviously not all of it is in the CRA district, so we wouldn't be able to pay for the entire thing, but I think the majority of it is in the district. So if the board wants to, we can pay for the majority of it. Right now we have a cost of about a little over $200,000 for 2 vehicles such as this. They are ADA compatible. It would be a on-demand ride, so you would have some kind of app on your phone and you would say, hey, I'm at the corner of, I don't know, H and Lake. They would come and pick you up. We were thinking maybe $1 a ride or something like that, just to try to encourage people to use transit and not, take it as a fun drive through the city. And I'm also talking to several people right now throughout the city on trying to get sponsorships for it, because as you can see, in many places they are sponsored. So we can call it a prototype this year. We can, run a few vehicles. They're 100% electric. I'm also looking for a place for them to charge, and we might have a partner to do that. And then if it runs well, which I would anticipate it does, we can add more vehicles, and we can also apply for a TPA grant. This is infrastructure. It's B through F Street. I learned maybe at the beginning of the year that the city was talking about repaving all of the side streets between Lake and Lucerne. So it goes B through H. This is where the tape is. You also have this on the table in front of you to show you which exact streets those are. The issue with these streets is not that they just need paving because of potholes. The issue is if they repave it, you have no more sidewalks because they've been repaved so many times that the sidewalk is actually flush with the road. So it would take not only resurfacing the roads, but also redoing all of the sidewalks. Not all of them are in really good shape. This was brought to the city as something that they would like to do. Commissioner Malega asked us if we would be interested in doing it. Just got the numbers today. It would be about a $600,000 project that we would be doing. We would be paying the city, and then the city, of course, would be the project manager for this, not us. And we thought this would be a really good idea, not only because obviously we're focused on this area and there's a lot of different developments coming up, but because we also thought maybe it could be a really cool project where, and Emily's already applied for a Bloomberg grant, where we would either paint the streets or paint the sidewalks here, so it's really like an impact when you come in. And then also thinking about, we've talked about painting houses and things like that. So to have the most impact, we would probably want to just, if we were to do it, would be to pick ones that are close to these particular streets. So when you're coming into the city, wow, you have brand new streets on Lake and Lucerne, you have a brand new circle, you have new side streets, and you have houses that are painted. Something to think about. And these are just some beautiful places. This one's England. The other thought was, one of my thoughts was anyway, to pick somebody with really good taste so they could come up with a paint palette so we don't have ugly houses. Affordable housing, obviously, this is a huge investment for us, something I hope we're going to continue as long as we're here. As I mentioned before, we already have $1 million in next year's budget specifically for this. We're hoping to get the $750 from Congresswoman Frankel soon. There's a lot of different projects, especially now with Live Local, that will probably come in that are going to be a little larger than probably we're used to. But hopefully we can get them to design them well. And hopefully they buy into public transportation. Land acquisition, we've had some good ones and we've had some bad ones. Something we've done over the years only because the city tends to have a lot of really small lots, and it's especially difficult on Dixie Highway to get enough land to do something of value that also has, unfortunately, parking associated with it, because we don't have a lot of people riding public transit. So we've been able to assemble land and do projects such as the Village Flats. And this is a picture of 1715 Dixie Highway that we assembled and then sold to Office America Group, and they're going to do the 125 units there. Marketing and promotion, this is specifically actually in our redevelopment plan, which is great because a lot of CRAs actually can't do this. But you can see there's a whole host of things that we do in marketing. Everything from ads at the airport to maps that we're going to redo, obviously, this year because they seem to change so much. Sun Sentinel ads, I believe this one was in Pure Honey magazine. We also have brochures that we do. We don't do a lot of brochures, but we do some. And we also have mailers that we do. And then finally, there's just a piece of paper here that says other ideas, because I'm sure you all have really great ideas that we just haven't really thought about, that we can look up and see if they're allowed by the plan, and then we can put some money towards it. So my hope tonight was that you have questions about any of these things. Please feel free to ask. You have 3 dots in front of you, 3 orange dots. I want you to pick first, second, and third, or the 3 top projects that you would like to see us do, what your priorities are, and then I will take that information and plug it into the budget and bring you the budget next time with the money where you would like to see it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, do we want to start with questions for Joan, and then we can take a minute to walk around and put our dots on the appropriate area? Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
great.
This is kind of new territory for us. Not that we haven't had workshops before, but I like the format. So, if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, let me know and we'll start us off. Anybody? Wow, everybody's ready to go with their dots.
So you also have little notepads there if you want to just write down something that I have not put up here and put it on other ideas. You can certainly do that, or you can write right on the piece of paper, whatever you feel most comfortable with.
All right, so
Yes.
we will, at the end, yes.
Ask a little bit more background on the Circa, because I'm a rider of Circa and Circuit, and I know how it worked in Palm Beach. They gave them like 20 grand a month for a little pilot program for a couple of months. And I have talked to the mayor about it a little bit, and there seems to be like, when you're using it, the way it's set up in West Palm Beach, is it's an on-demand, like an Uber,
Mhm.
and it's an app, and it's just like Uber. It comes, it picks you up, and it takes you where you want to go, and it's free.
Correct.
And you always, therefore, generously tip the driver.
Mm.
And I think it holds about 4 or 5 people, five people.
About 6.
Did I hear that it's only gonna be on Lake and Lucerne, or if you're off in the neighborhood, will they come pick you up?
Good question. So we did talk about that, and I'm certainly not the person who's going to be making the decision on this. You know, you and the city will be. The thought was, if we got somebody, let's say, who lives in Vernon Heights and calls, and then they want to go down to the south part of the city, you're basically taking that car out of use for
Well,
anybody else.
West Palm Beach has like they have an area, you can't go.
Right,
any-
so our area
everywhere.
would be pretty much around the downtown, like second to second, all the area in between.
Yeah, I think you should really look at that, because we have a very compact city, and you could probably pick up a lot of people beyond just Lake and Lucerne, which is not really serving the town a lot, because a lot of people are coming from out. So, people who live here and want to go downtown and may not be able to walk there because it's just a little bit too far, then I'd keep an eye on that and
Sure.
put your hand in and say, they'll give you a recommendation, on how, but West Palm Beach they go very long. They go into Palm Beach, and they have a big range in Palm Beach.
I'm sure they have a lot more cars. We were talking about 3 cars, so.
I don't know, they had like two or 3 cars that were serving Palm Beach, so.
Okay. We'll get some numbers.
It's a terrific
Yeah.
program. I think it's really worthwhile. And
Yeah, for sure.
it's a lot of fun, and it actually has a social benefit to bring your neighbors together, and so it's really nice. It's got no downside as far as I can tell, so I would be 100% in support of it.
Okay, great.
The one that, sorry, real quick, on that same topic, the one that I'm familiar with is in Delray, and it's supported by advertisement. I don't know that, you don't pay for the
Right,
ride.
so when Betty and I met with them, we asked them about that. So if we can get people to sponsor it, that would be great. I'm actually already working on that. But the thought was that the CRA would pay the majority of it, and then if there's fees that are charged, like $1 to ride, if you decide to do that, great. If not, great too. Or if there's advertising, that they would take that off of the city side, so the city wouldn't have to pay as much.
Got it. Okay,
So if we can get them sponsored, then we can get them sponsored.
okay.
Do you want to go first? I had a question, Joan, about planning for the mobility plan. So I know we had a workshop a couple of months ago. And what is, what does the next year look like for that in terms of CRA funding and?
We're not actually funding the mobility plan at all, the city is, but this is a component of it, a very, I think, important component of it. They have a draft report that just came out the other day. There's really not that much to it as of yet, so they're still looking at, they're gonna have to look at parking, and then they're going to have to look at funding sources. So I think this runs parallel to it. Maybe we're a little ahead of the game, but I think, in the end, it'll all kind of, enter in together.
Okay, thanks.
Do you need this?
I'm going to ask you to repeat it.
Okay.
My question regarding circuit, would,
Just a
is
reminder, you
it,
have to speak into the microphone. so
Yes.
everyone-
I'm gonna repeat what she says.
so if it were to start, because we're gonna have construction on Lake and Lucerne, and then once that construction is done, would we be able to change the boundaries? And also, would it be able to go over to the beach?
The very, very draft route we have right
Joan,
now.
Sorry, repeat.
I'm
that.
so sorry. I just said I was going to repeat what you said. So Commissioner Bloxson just asked about the boundaries and are we going to be going over to the beach? So the answer to that is absolutely. The thought was we would start at Tri-Rail because a lot of people are coming in that way, and then go through the western side here, go through downtown, head over to the beach. On the way back, maybe kind of break away a little bit so we make sure that people can go to the different banks that are on Dixie Highway and Publix and things like that, Compass, and then kind of come back around to Lucerne Avenue and then go back to the Tri-Rail station. We're also talking to Palm Beach State because they're actually very interested in it as well. So I believe we have a meeting with them in a few weeks to talk about trying to, coordinate. So students could actually, I mean, we'd have to like stop at our border, but they could easily get on and get off and come downtown or go to the beach on the circuit.
So are we talking about the same thing? About a fixed route?
Yeah.
Okay, because I honestly think it should not be a fixed route. It should be on demand.
It's
because,
both.
Yeah, because otherwise you see the buses going around and around in every community. And if nobody's going to the bank, they're going to go by the bank anyway. And it's a whole more progressive thing where it's on demand. And, I need to go to the bank, but I don't need to go to the supermarket. Or honestly, you need to think about that because otherwise this thing's just going to have no customers if there's no demand for that.
Correct. We will. Any
Right.
other questions?
Are we ready to do our dots?
I have another question.
Sure.
Or another sort of observation. We have all this wonderful kind of street improvement on the east side, and we have crosswalks and we have all sorts of safety, traffic improvements, and I really don't see it over here. I see actually a lot of people who gather here and work and play and live here on this side, and there doesn't seem to be any sidewalk improvements, crosswalks. I feel like we're a little bit hiding in plain sight that this is the wrong side of the tracks. And I would really like to see if we are actually supposed to be improving blight or the perception of blight, is there a way that we could, it's part of our charter, to put money towards an improvement like we did on like what happened over there? Could we do it over here to make this side look less like, the wrong side? I think there needs to be equality there. Does
So
anybody
that-
have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, a portion of that is the infrastructure that we talked about with the city. So all the way from the circle, FDOT would be doing all the improvements in that area. They'd also be doing the improvements all along Lake and Lucerne, attaching to the side streets. So there would be all new sidewalks. There'll be all new crosswalks. In the neighborhoods itself, I don't know where
I'm
the
just
city.
talking about Lake and Lucerne, like going across the street. It seems it's quite dangerous and it's very fast.
But that's what the infrastructure project is.
Okay, so there's new sidewalks then?
Yes, brand new sidewalks.
Okay.
But the city had it in their work plan, but it was obviously in a main area where we're doing a lot of redevelopment. So they asked us if we would take it on. So I thought I would bring it to you and ask if you would be willing for us to do that. And then we can combine it with some of the other things that we do and really kind of focus on this particular area here from, it's actually all the way from H to the traffic circle.
Great.
I had a question to bring up with John. In our conversations, I brought up trying to address the quality of rentals available to the city, how we could approach that, and I think we once discussed the possibility of offering grants to landlords who were wanting to refurbish their rentals, but would agree to a certain type of restriction on their deed. Do you think that, talking about the budget, have you had any new ideas, or do you think that's still feasible? In my mind, a landlord would apply and they would say, my apartment is not in the best condition. I want to do these repairs to it, and I agree to keep the rent and have offer the home to the current tenant first, but promise to keep the rent below market or at market for X amount of years or for a certain period of time, that we would feel like we got something for our investment. Is there how do you feel about that now, and is there anything that you could tell us about the possibility of making that happen? with the
I
board?
certainly don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's probably one of those other ideas that we can put up there and, people can say whether they want to support it or not. I mean, and I hate to be a detractor right away, but there are some hiccups we'd have to kind of figure out first. For instance, is it first come, first serve? Who gets it? Who's going to monitor it? If the CRA does sunset in 8 years, then what happens? We do have difficulty in, I could tell you from NSP, with the 400 units we have, of people trying to do things that they're not supposed to. So sometimes sales will happen, and they're not going to people who make 120% or less. And it's always me calling David and getting legal involved, because there's really not a lot staff can do about that. So I think we'd have to work out those kinks, but I think perhaps we could call around some CRAs and see if they do something similar and see what they do, and then go from there.
Now that you bring up ensuring or enforcing the rules or the conditions of the agreement, right? I don't know. I'm sure you heard about it. The issue that happened in Wellington with some workforce housing, right? That the owners of these apartments were renting out all their home or all the units at whatever they wanted to, and saying that some of them were workforce, right? And then they got in trouble with the county. I believe in Wellington. I don't know if you recall that. And so my point is there any way of us following up with the people who have agreed to workforce housing with the money that we've given them? Is there any way of us to ensure that they're being compliant, so that doesn't happen in our district?
We spend an enormous amount of our time doing nothing but that, and that's kind of my issue, is moving forward. It's much easier to do it when you have a few private developers that have really large buildings, and then you have partners who are nonprofits who have the same vision that you have, versus having landlords that we would have to continually follow up on. And then if they don't do it, I'm not sure what our stick is to make them do it. So I think those are things we just have to kind of think through a little bit more, and maybe get some guidance from David.
Something that comes to mind is I don't know how many people understand when they're renting a home like that. What has this property agreed to? Does workforce housing exist here? Who's getting? You know what I mean? It should be. I feel from reading that piece on the county, I feel like the county doesn't do a good enough job of enforcing the workforce housing rules and ensuring that these units are being made available for the price they say it is. I think a type of, if we were to go about this, a workshop or some classes like the home ownership, but for tenants, you know what I mean? Because I in my experience working with landlords, some of their complaints are that the tenants don't always have best practices, right? And so they're not so interested in ensuring that the house is always fixed, because some tenants, they'll do things like put oil down the drain, you know what I mean, or just a few things, or not replace their filter, just some things that some people might not think about. But if we educated them and said, for example, if you're participating in this type of program, hey, this landlord agreed to rent to you for this amount of time, for this amount of money. It's kind of your responsibility to enforce that, and to let us know or to report that if something isn't happening or something goes wrong, if they're not being a responsible landlord. But also your responsibility is to make sure that the unit is being well maintained, and this is some best practices you can do to go about it. I think a combination of offering this type of grant and this type of opportunity to landlords with the restrictions, and also ensuring that there's some type of education for both landlords and tenants. We might work out some of those kinks, and might not have to do the monitoring ourselves, you know what I mean? If we ensure that all parties going into it are fully informed, I think we might see some success, and hopefully, a type of prototype. I don't know how many CRAs or cities have done this, but I think if we
I can tell you most of them haven't, and that's because most cities have a housing department, which we don't have.
Mm-hmm.
As far as reporting is concerned, because of NSP2, because of the federal dollars, they have to submit to us every single year a report. There are sometimes, things that fall through the cracks, like I said, and we have to get legal involved. And it's not fun, and it's pretty complicated. We can certainly look at it and maybe see if somebody can do it from the outside. I wouldn't think that it was something that the staff could do.
My question is regarding the 55 and older community.
Mhm.
When he came before us a couple months ago, it was 88 units.
Correct.
And I see today it's 174.
Correct.
Could you give the board a little more background regarding how the state law impacted that decision and what options we have?
Sure. So the Live Local Act, I'm sure all of you are familiar with. We talked about it maybe a meeting or two ago. Really allows affordable housing developers to build to the height and density that they want within boundaries. So if there's another development within a mile of them, and there is, like there's the Bohemian, right? It's 7 stories. It's pretty dense. They are allowed to go as dense and as high as that particular project is. They do not have to do any rezoning, nor do they have to do any land use change. So this particular developer came in with saying, yes, I want to do about 80 units. Honestly, low-income housing tax credits, in order to get those 9% tax credits, there has to be a lot of units, and it's a lottery. So every year, Palm Beach County, Orange County, Broward County put in, I don't even know, dozens and dozens of applications, and they choose just a few of them every year. So it's very difficult to get the 9% tax credits. The only other project that's gotten it here is La Jolla, and that was run through the Community Land Trust, and now it's run by the Housing Authority. So because of Live Local, he realized that now he can put more units there and probably have a better chance of getting the low-income housing tax credits, but also doing a much bigger project. So it was just maybe like 2 weeks ago, I saw the preliminary site plan that came in and saw that there was 176 units versus somewhere between 80 and 90. So it's not something that we have a lot of control over, nor does the city to a degree. You just hope that whatever is built well and designed well, and hopefully serves the community that needs it.
All right. Thank you.
I have another interesting, sorry. I just went to the Congress for New Urbanism in Charlotte last week. It was really terrific, and I would urge anybody who can take the time to go. I didn't really have the time, but I knew it was important. And there's really 4 or 5 days of progressive ideas about urban planning and town planning and local governments. And I was really, there were a lot of people there from planning departments and city officials, city council members from all over. So it was really great to see that. And I would urge anybody who wants to dig deeper into all kinds of things. I learned something really interesting, and there's this research being done. We all know about redlining and how the banks really excluded certain communities and said that they just wouldn't give mortgages, and that has been looked at and rectified to a degree, but and it's very much recognized. But what this Joe Menacuzzi has looked, Manacuzzi, whatever his name is,
Manacuzzi, he gave
Manacuzzi, yeah, he is looking at.
We had him a year and a half ago here, I think.
He's looking at the residual of the redlining is that in many communities, such as we had where we had these black communities mostly that were kind of ringed out, and he's finding that the taxes are higher there than the surrounding properties. And he said he urged everybody to do the research, and it's fairly easy if you had an intern or somebody, or even noodling around. The tax records are so easy to find in on the internet for Palm Beach County. You could really find out whether one property is getting charged too much money. I thought it was very interesting, and it made me think that maybe we could look at that. Now, what does the CRA do and what does it not do? And this might be way beyond their, reach, but I think it's worth thinking about, and maybe those like Ronaldo or someone who's, in the government could look at that. Thank you.
Dot time.
Dots.
Feel free to take your time, discuss. There's no rush.
So it's just between the Lake of Lucerne, and it's not
Yeah.
Lake of Lucerne itself.
No, Lake of Lucerne is being done by FDOT.
But it has nothing to do with whatever, like,
No, that was a city bond
Yeah.
program, yeah.
that was quite nice. It would be nice to make something like that, because you know what FDOT will do. They'll just make cars go faster.
Yeah.
It's too bad.
You can leave some. Yeah, I need some more dots. Yeah. I'm just gonna piggyback that 'cause there's a big one. The cheapest. And they have a cool golf cart versus the buses and. The middle one, the middle door is, you can put somebody in there. But that's why they have the extra van ready, just in case, like it's too difficult or something. Yes, yes. They also have cars. They're not. Big marker, I don't know where I went. That's why we have partners, right? That's why we have the door open, because there's no air in here. So we parked it up in there and opened the door.
Yeah, we do restrict access.
But we don't have an agreement. We don't have an agreement, so we said verbally we can do it, but we cannot sign anything. So he's gonna have to come back.
If you wanna go ahead and grab one, save us some time and money. And naturally, we gotta come up with money. They get real.
Yeah, it doesn't like to,
Anyway, how's David? I'm sure he did. Had to go over the video. Right. Someone's been back then.
I think the city needs to flush that out.
Seminar presentation thing, and they had plans for the first, where it was in the same place as the girl. She just came back up.
Yeah, and then just came home. And like, and especially.
I mean, it's not that he wasn't here, but
Yeah, I see. I don't know. Better you all know that than me.
Here, but yeah.
yeah. He does not have it. A, he gets the tax credit, but B, he can be agreement.
yeah, no, it just stops when it's.
It was like
When he comes back and we go to
essentially
sign,
the development, they agreed to X amount of
the
workforce.
city can step in and they can give it.
Like, for example, if somebody would move out and it would be empty, they would say that's the workforce. And then when somebody would move in, they would move it to something else. Like always
Yeah.
leaving it alone.
Yeah. 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 250 elderly people who are low income, and how are they gonna get to the downtown? Are they gonna get to Publix?
Remember that he needs that funding to check the box on the application.
Yeah.
So, because part of the criteria is that you have the buy-in from the community. What's interesting is if they say, yeah, you got it, do we actually fund it?
No, because we don't have an agreement.
Right, so like, he might be like, hey, now I can do 170, I don't even need you guys.
Well, he got his wish.
And I hit the lottery.
No, he can't do it without a local match.
Oh, he has to have,
It
okay.
has to- That's why I said if we don't do it and the city wanted to do it, that's fine, but
But if we don't do it, the city doesn't do it,
then he doesn't have a project.
or he doesn't.
Correct. And I don't think he can do it without the credit.
Well, I decided to Uber one
because, you know, is he going to sort of say more compliance barriers that people pay?
I think because it's a partially federally funded project that he's gonna have to put up a wall similar to the one La Jolla did. I think they had to build an 8-foot concrete wall. So I think on the back of it, he has to build that. Which is good and bad because it kind of stinks for the neighbors behind it, but
This isn't like a skilled nursing facility, so these are just 55 plus, but you know, what's interesting, we do the insurance for a ton of assisted living facilities, like 800 of them, and they have like an industry standard, they call it, they have to be walkie-talkies, you have to be mobile, and you have to be able to live in an assisted living facility. So that the people that run those, like they call them walkie-talkies. So that you can't live in a facility if you can't communicate, and you're not ambulatory, you can't move around, then you have to go to a nursing home.
right.
But this would be like, that would be well before that. Like I think these are more apartments for 55 plus. Then once you age out of there, you go to assisted living, and then you go to skilled nursing. From there,
Hopefully God's waiting for you.
yeah.
All right, what's next?
That's it, we're done. Unless
Is that
you
it?
wanna sit down and discuss stuff for a little bit, and we can close it out, because like I said, we gotta get the room ready for tomorrow.
Yeah. Palm Beach Gardens and Stewart. There's 4. Yeah. Oh, I know that guy. Right there. Yeah. Yeah, we've had an office there since 1964 in Delray. It's 104 years old. But it was.
That was a good question, by the way. How about the 55 plus? I didn't really catch that the number of units were out.
Yes, and this law is going to
Oh, I
affect
see.
us hugely. Yes, and we really don't have
My dad was kids, my brother and I run
it, but
now.
it can, you know, and I think it's
Married.
a lot of
The younger one, youngest brother, I have 3 All right, we're going to sit back down and wrap up our workshop.
That's promising. Wrap up the workshop.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you for participating in the workshop, and I think this was a nice.
Don't mind me.
Okay.
Misty, what's this right here?
Mayor and Commissioner, if you have anything that you'd like to comment on or suggest.
Yeah, I can do pretty quickly. So we need a microphone.
Hold on. Here, where did it go?
It's taped down, so you're gonna hold.
That's not awkward at all. Yeah, so I was here mostly. This is they're all really important priorities. Obviously, one thing I've been working really closely with is with the circuit group. I first met them at the beginning of the year, probably like February or something like that, and this was after meeting other options as well, for them to come up with a very preliminary option and what does it look like in terms of pricing and whatnot. And I've provided my thoughts on what that route is, and then Joan came on and provided her thoughts, and to nobody's surprise, two people who are very much into planning basically had the same idea. Because it's kind of like the more obvious route that needs to happen. And in regards to can it be the app-based door-to-door pickup and fixed route, is they were at least fairly clear to me that that's doable and is actually kind of key to their success, because from the planning standpoint, you just want to assume that having fixed stops and a route is the way to go because it's efficient and it's where it's going to go. But what they have found through their data is actually quite the opposite, is that they're a lot more efficient going door to door, and people are using it to do things. The fixed route would be really good for tourist concerns. Get them to the beach, get them downtown, spend money. That's really good. Hop on, hop off. The door-to-door pickup, what they find has really been successful for people to even go get groceries. Because if you look at those gem cars, they have like a box on the back that's for all intents and purposes is like a trunk, and you can put a lot of stuff in there. So people will do grocery runs, and it's been really successful in other places, and it's really exciting because I look at mobility as something that ties into so much more. It's more than just moving people around. It also addresses things like affordability, right? Cars are expensive. Many of us don't have, more than one car, if any at all. And as a regular rider of PalmTran, for example, PalmTran's really good, and it's made a lot of improvements over the years, but there's always that last mile problem, right? That's the public transit nightmare of planning, is what are you going to do for that last mile, especially in months like now where it's almost 100 degrees in the afternoon. You just got to make it a little bit more bearable and usable so that people can use the transit system as a whole, whether it's Tri-Rail, PalmTran, Circuit. It all works together as a system, and I think that's a really important perspective to keep in mind, because for people who live near downtown, they might not, we all know what the rents are. You might not be able to afford rent right in downtown, but you work there. You might be 10 blocks away. That might be a little bit beyond your walking ability. But you also can't afford a car. So what do? You can either walk to Dixie, hop on PalmTran, and walk off of Dixie, or you can have something that fills in the gaps. And that's pretty much it. The other one that stands out for me is land acquisition. That's always been a tool that's really important for me, especially environmental, and that's how you preserve things, and that's how you preserve land. And that a lot of the other things aren't going to happen unless you do land acquisition. And I also want to throw out that perspective in there. You do want to acquire that land and those properties in key areas to encourage mixed use and proper development, but you're probably a little bit more limited because of where your CRA district is now. But when you do have the opportunity to acquire, maybe you have that small, awkward property. I know the city owns a bunch of triangle-shaped properties. That's like the worst thing that you can have, because what do you do with a triangle-shaped property? Well, look at the value not just as money and economic, but the community value. That triangle-shaped property, that thing that otherwise might not be built, can be preserved as a green area, and that has a tremendous positive impact on, outside of economics, on community, mental health. There's a lot of outstanding research that points that out. So, and it relates to what Ms. Fairfax mentioned about redlining. It's a practice that doesn't exist in law technically, but it is a practice that many community activists and stuff will point out does still happen in other ways. And as CRA, as city, we're really well poised to address those problems.
Brenton, I just wanted to just say one thing. You're very correct about the redlining. When we did NSP, we had no banks. No banks that wanted to do any kind of mortgages. But that's the great thing about our partners. So community partners stepped up and did mortgages. The CRA, we did probably maybe about 50 second mortgages to make things happen just because we had to, because the banks wouldn't do it.
And that is that on? Oh, yeah.
Yep.
The availability of the money, that's the key. That's what gets you in a house or keeps you up forever at a house. I came in late and I apologize. Two things. The circuit ride. Yeah, when Joan and I met with him a couple weeks ago, I'm glad that he's talking to more than just me or just Ronaldo. It is a combination of drop off, and how to fund it is the next. We're going to get some numbers and find out. So I'm excited that we're talking about that. The other thing I'm really excited about is the 821 South Dixie Highway senior housing. That's one of the biggest parcels in the city. Is right on the Dixie Highway. It's right on the buses. So, and I've been really impressed with Mike Oliver. Yeah, when we meet with him, because he seems really committed to the idea. There's going to be staff. There's going to be community rooms. There's going to be activities. So it's not, it's going to be a place for people to one-bedroom apartments. Everybody gets their own bathroom. So thanks for considering this stuff. I think it's really great, and thanks for all the work that you do.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for participating, and just know that this isn't the last step. We're going to have other discussions. So this is a good for giving direction, and we'll have further discussion on the budget as it's developed. Have a good evening, and
Thank you.
I'm sure that anyone that's able to stay and help, we can start. Do you need help putting stuff away?
We've got it.
You sure? I'll stay and help. All right.
Thank you, though.
everybody.
Thanks.